move forward. You might have noticed we did change seats, but the cookies are still close to me, so whoever did the rearranging, I appreciate that. So, guess we'll start out with going through the budget. I know there was a few things that we are, we asked for regarding the insurance, regarding any staffing adjustments that we would highlight those today, and there was also a number of questions along the line. So, if you'd like to start out with maybe talking to us about this sheet that you gave us, Howie, and we'll go from there.
We're looking at the sheet that has yellow on it. It's actually the overview. This is the shortcut, and it's changed from anything you might have seen before because we're able to add the projected actual for revenue. If you look at column F, that's the end of 2012 actual, and what you see at the bottom is a negative $569,000. What you want to see as you move to the left to column D, that's a lot less than the $998,000, and for actual going to column B. So what you're seeing is a trend to the net loss, the amount of money that has to be appropriated by taxation as going down significantly. And that's the trend that we hope to support. It's not one that we can guarantee because of all the things that we do, the things that we don't control are the revenue streams. We control a lot of expenses, but we can't control exactly what Medicare, Medicaid reimbursement is going to be. There's some patient mix, resident mix things that we don't completely control. You'll see on the second page for your review is kind of a summary of a resident day comparison, showing how we finished up 2012 with a 98.5% occupancy rate, which is exceptional. Just over 37,000 total days.
If your private pay runs out of money, I assume they just switched into Medicaid?
Almost always. And it's beneficial to us and beneficial to county residents to have that mix because the reimbursement level for private pay is greater than Medicaid. I have to tell you, I can remember in the old days in Belknap where they never allowed anybody who was private pay to come in. They would essentially force them to spend down before they came in. Here, why shouldn't the county be able to receive that money? And we do, and we're at just under 25%, which I would suggest to you is about the right percent, the right balance of meeting different needs within the county.
The admissions number there, is that total annual admissions? What is that? That's
total annual. I'll predict, and it's our hope that number is going to go up significantly because if we can drive up the skilled, the Medicare days, last year 4.5% to let's say 10%, those are short-term admissions. So when you have people in for 21 days instead of 2 years, you have more of them. So our admissions are going to get to be more complicated and more frequent, but our revenue from those Medicare beds will go up.
So you didn't mean you hope more people die quicker?
No, not a matter of death. It's a matter of people getting those knees fixed and going home.
Okay.
So there's really three populations that we're catering to: a private pay long-term care, a Medicaid long-term care, but also a short-term care that typically is skilled, not necessarily, but typically is skilled. But back to the first page. What you're seeing, and now we have been very conservative. Paula's been very conservative with revenue assumptions, and we don't try to. Well, we're not trying to over budget for expenses, but we're trying to put together a representative budget that's very favorable, and it's all laid out there for you.
Why is it? Why are we back? Headed in the wrong direction again on your net.
Under H, even with that's showing, the column H is comparing budget 13 to budget 12. And what that shows is a $262,000 difference. That is still That's $262,000 favorable. So in budget 12, we budgeted for $1.8 million deficit, and in budget 2013, we're budgeting for $1.5 million. So we're reducing it. Now, if this coming year is true to form and we're able to outperform the revenue expectations, it'll be even better, but we don't want to promise what we don't control and can't necessarily deliver on.
Okay, sure, Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the posting that's done in terms of revenues and expenditures is what? Where are we at with that?
The expense sheets that you have are through today, through the whole year. There will be a few more postings from 2012, probably not a whole lot, maybe $5,000 more in expenses. The revenues that is on your sheet with the yellow, that's what I have projected. They only have them posted next door through November, but I pulled my December figures and added them, so that's what we come up with. I mean, it could vary a little bit, but that won't vary too much either.
Great, thanks.
So you're projecting less revenue for the coming year than the year before?
Right. Well, and that all determines, we get PSP money, which we never know how much that's going to be. The Medicaid rate, like you said, we don't know what we're going to get in June. We have our January rate, but then they do it again in June for July 1st. Part B's, there's a whole new program with that, so we might make less in Part B revenue.
Okay. You always get the money that the state says they're going to give you?
For
Yeah. You do get it? Okay.
But we don't control the rate. We get what we're told, but the Medicaid rate can vary though. It's recently, and it varies by formula based on age of facility, mix of residents, and different things. And it's been favorable to us in this past year, but we can't necessarily assume that we'll get an increase next year. Well, I think it's reviewed every quarter, isn't it, or every...
They do it twice a year.
Twice a year, semi-annual.
What does expanded to Medicaid, when they're going to do that, how will that affect anything here?
I don't believe that it will, and it shouldn't, because we're pretty much capped at a per bed day rate. So while those services might affect community-based services, it shouldn't affect institutional-based services.
It might increase the pool that is available for services, but
the net effect to us of changes going on outside these walls is that we can reasonably expect that the people that are coming to us are going to be of higher acuity. That is, they're going to have greater needs, more complicated medical situations. They're going to be getting home care. They're going to be in assisted living, and they're going to transfer here where that's no longer successful or safe. And so it'll typically mean our length of stay will go down, but our complexity will go up, and the care needs and the staffing needs will increase as a result.
If a person has long-term care at home and they have to move into here, normally does that long-term care policy transfer over and pick up some of your costs here? Or does it
Always.
Always?
I mean, in fact, sometimes it doesn't work the other way around, because my understanding is that any long-term care insurance policy written in New Hampshire, supervised by the Department of Insurance, always includes licensed nursing. Doesn't always include home care, but most often does. And most will include assisted living as well.
Are we contracted with any of the long-term insurances? Is that part of it? Is that part of that industry yet?
Those payments are always made to the resident themselves, although we would be responsible for completing some of the eligibility criteria, certifications that the care was provided. And that's usually only difficult the first month. And after that, the check itself, unless assigned by the resident to us, is payable to the resident, not to the facility, not to us.
Okay, so you, as a follow-up, so essentially you don't have a contracted rate with any long-term care insurance provider?
Not at all. The way long-term care insurance virtually always works is that the client will get a set amount per day regardless of what costs are. Typically that's going to be $100 or $150 per day. It's actually unrelated to costs as long as the costs are at least that amount.
Thank you. And I believe
Thank you. Is there anybody you do not take? Is there any certain level where you will say that is not suitable?
Clearly. In fact, we're obligated and required only to accept people for whom we can properly care for. The group that might be most obvious that we wouldn't be able to care for is certainly somebody who needs hospital care, but also there are people with behavioral issues that need secure psychiatric settings, people who have brain or head injuries, and in some situations for which this level of care would not be appropriate or would need completely specialized care. Becky would know better. I'm trying to think. Dialysis would be.
Dialysis is one that we haven't taken, and the other thing that's come to light is there is a reach of a bariatric patient that we will not take. Bariatric guidelines say for anything over 350, you should start having an extra person for every 50 pounds of weight. So it becomes an issue with transporting on the vans, wheelchairs, stuff you have to supply. So we're looking at, if we really have to go over 400 pounds, that probably is not going to happen.
Then why are we buying lifts that hold 600 pounds?
Because people we have here have been in and actually approached that. So we have to provide care for here. They're grandfathered, but down the road, we do know that that's probably where we're going to have to start looking. Is when you start hitting the 400-pound ratio, even with all the lifts that you have and everything like that, you're really requiring additional staff just based on the bulk of the individual.
It's not only grandfathers, people actually gain weight after being transferred here, and it would be difficult for us, it's difficult for us to discharge somebody once they're a resident.
So if you get a 399-pounder,
and he becomes 450 pounds.
I'm not being facetious, that's what you're talking about.
Exactly, and that's not speculative, that does happen.
Okay. What about Alzheimer's?
No, that's what we do best. The two lower mountains, the 4 neighborhoods at this level, are specially designed to meet the needs of those with memory support, who need memory support and dementia care.
So we already have them in place. They're here. We just don't, if someone was, an Alzheimer individual was a person, because of their behaviors, required a locked ward, we wouldn't be able to take them because we don't have a locked ward.
Okay. So, thank you for that, Howie. What I would propose to do at this time is for us to maybe focus on the food service area, so then, we can look at and, entertain those questions to Rob, and then he can go back to providing the food to the residents.
Representative Ahlgren, just a couple of quick questions to follow up, so that since if I leave, then I'll get them answered. In terms of dialysis, since we have a place closer now, is it not possible, and I know that there's an increased need for medical services, is it not possible to provide that service here at the nursing home?
It would require a lot of training because, yes, we do have a dialysis unit that's close, but you're talking people here that have different cognitive issues as well. So when you're putting stents into major arteries and stuff, it would be a little bit difficult. It would require training. I mean, it's not a complete out, but we really have to bump up a lot of training in this institution so that every person, and then sometimes, we don't have straight RN coverage. So that presents another issue when you're dealing with people that have stents and stuff. There are certain things that LPNs can do, there are certain things that RNs can do when it comes to that. And I know Conway has built up since the last thing about here, but there's also transportation costs. We have to pay, if they have to go up by ambulance, that's a transportation cost each way.
I understand that. I just know that there were people here who couldn't come to the nursing home because they needed dialysis, and part of the reasoning for getting local dialysis was to be able to provide that service. So I hope if at some point that becomes a challenge, we can look at it.
Definitely.
Can I follow up on that? I think you said that we have a dialysis unit, but
No, there's one in Conway now.
Oh, okay.
And I knew that would be coming. It will require extra training. As a matter of fact, I don't even know how many people they're actually seeing on board right now in this area, but it would require extra training, but the other big thing is the transportation cost. It's a great difference if you can go by private car, if you've got somebody that takes you, versus we use our wheelchair van, versus we having to call an ambulance. And and then we have to pay for that to provide that service.
Understood. Thank you.
You got it. All right, very good. So, let's see, to turn our attention to the food service.
What page is that?
What page is it?
And that is dietaries on 22.
I only go to 11.
5130 is the section.
That's easy.
What page 11?
It's gonna be near the back, because all the nursing home things are, like the last third of the packet.
You're looking at the expenditures, right? Is that right?
Are you looking at the ones I just gave you?
Yeah,
Page 2 on yours.
Page 2.
Page 2. They're looking at a different,
Oh, okay.
than you have.
So what are we looking at now?
Where
What you
is-
gave to us?
Well, you can look at either one, but
the actual expense? All right, let me pull that out.
Yeah, this is not budget. You're right.
There you go. Okay, yeah, it's page 2 of the most recent expenses. And let's see. So you have a list of capital of $5,500, and I know that we were curious about some of.
Yeah, there's a line item, I think, for replacement dishware, pans, things that wear out. I believe that's a line. Are you looking at capital expense now?
your capital.
Well, we had the new. We received this new equipment breakdown.
Yep.
And in the dietary section, there were questions regarding that. I know there was a question regarding the necessity of the panini grill by Representative McConkey, who is not here today, and then just maybe a little more further breakdown of the replacement pots, pans, dishes, etc. is something that we're interested in finding more out about.
What that line item for replacement, we use for the residents a meal delivery system. It's an induction system. It has bases, it has insulated covers. With wear and tear, some of those covers or domes, may either just get wear out or the finish will wear out. It's going through the dish machine 3 times a day. So as we find items that are not either appearing proper or can't be cleaned properly, we replace them. So that line item is for most of the replacements that I'd have in food service of reusable serviceware. So, and it's for the plates that may get broken or chipped or lose their finish, as well as sheet pans, stock pots, or things like that that may, during the course of the year, just be not suitable because they can't be sanitized properly, or they've just lost their finish.
Okay. And what percentage of those replacement items were items that were brought over from the old facility to the new facility?
Well, most of the hardware, the pots, pans, the metalware, all came from the other building.
But the
and plates as well, plates and mugs and some of those items. But now we've been using, the items that we opened with, we did change, the meal delivery system, as I was saying, the bases and the domes. From day one, they started getting used, so we're like 18 months down the road now, so some of it is starting to get kind of worn looking. So it becomes really a judgment call on my part when it's not suitable to keep it in service, and then we have to just schedule it to be replaced.
Okay. So of that $4,000, then I guess the bottom line question is, of that $4,000, how much of it is being replaced that is items that were already purchased new for the nursing home, or, 18 months ago, I guess is really the bottom line.
Well, I mean, it could be all of it. It's all going to be replaced. If it goes out of service, it'll be replaced with, a like item. Things, sheet pans.
I'm sorry, maybe I need to rephrase my question.
Yep.
Essentially, the question I think that was of concern was how much of this money is being spent on items that we're replacing that have already been purchased since the nursing home this facility was built. So you mentioned that pretty much the domes and the plates.
Or trays, things that are going through that dish machine, because as you know, that dish machine is running almost like at a boiling temperature, to sanitize all of our serviceware. So even the trays are starting to look, worn. So I'm trying to just make sure I have enough in there to replace it, because there isn't any question when it's deemed not cleanable, it has to be replaced.
Absolutely. So. Yes, Commissioner Babson.
A couple of questions. Rob, you do an excellent job here, and I think you should be congratulated, and especially in the face of increased costs for food. You've gone over quite a bit, and that's easily explained in the increase in the cost of food. But we haven't reached a point where we're decreasing the quality of the meals served here in order to keep the cost of foods down.
Well,
and how imaginative can you be?
What I just shift the menu mix, as I see some item that's, just getting cost prohibitive, I go in. Luckily, we're on a computerized menu system, so I'm running 3 cycles at one time, running the long-term care, the correction, and then the cafe. So as I see, we can estimate what our batch cost is going to be to produce any meal. And, if beef or chicken or something is, that in a particular month looking like it's too high, we go in and we'll make that change.
Why? Since I've been on the delegation and now as commissioner, we've always spent, it's either $3.15 or $3.50 for the meal. The cost of food going up, why aren't we raising the price to the jail and anybody else that's buying?
Well, the meal, I cost out the meal. The meal that I send DOC is a less cost, the food cost is less for the DOC meal than it is for the long-term care meal. So, we'll serve a chicken breast here, they're getting a chicken croquette. If I'm serving roast beef on Sunday, they may get hamburger noodles. So, I'm trying to, he's my customer too at DOC, so I have to be in, close contact with Jason as well as far as, how the meals are being received there, keep the lid on, DOC. So essentially I'm a department head of DOC as well.
Are you increasing your request for substantially to cover the difference there?
I'm looking really with Paula right now, and we're going to reallocate some expenses that are showing on my expense line, and some of them, I haven't seen really the detailed report, but I have gone through it today, and I'm going to recommend that we back out some expenses that really aren't appropriate for food service and should be transferred to rehab, things like adaptive cups, plates, bowls that are showing in my non-food expense of about, and then toner, things that, are more of an office related that we really didn't figure into our budget. And as we had an older copy machine, was using more toner than certainly I expected to show in our expense line in the previous year. So about $15,000 I feel can be reallocated out of that non-food expense line, but it'll go somewhere else.
And that line you're talking about 039?
Yes. There's also a comment that I'll make on the 050 account, which is the food service account. we're starting to see the impact now of the cafe, the fact that we're serving we have a retail establishment there, small as it is, but it's, probably going to generate, maybe $35,000 or $40,000 a year in revenue. Well, there's expenses, purchasing the items, for that. So things like soda, that I was not buying in the other building, pretty much a majority of the soda that we sell now is from that cafe. So when I look at my food service costs, there's expenses in there for soda that you could arguably definitely take out of about $7,500.
Do you have I don't see it, do we have a separate line for that income, for the cafe in here?
No, but that's one thing I have been asking for, since
It certainly
the
should be in
inception.
there.
It's gonna be in there.
In the revenue side, yes, there is.
But see, you don't see it in the expenses, so where I've been, there may be, say, $35,000 in income, I'm just eating the expense for that.
It's not shown as a credit to expense. It's just shown as an addition to revenue.
So if you took my total budget and take $35,000 off the bottom line, that's actually what my department has run.
Correct, so I'm just trying to find where, if you could tell me where that is on,
In revenue, or?
Yeah.
It's in revenue. So there's a cafe line item. They added is $5,053.
oh, there we go, cafe meals. Okay, so and they added $35,000 for cafe meals.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Rob, just if we're buying this much Coca-Cola, what are we doing about recycling the bottles, which is now bringing us the most revenue in the recycling stream? From what I see here every day, they're doing everything else. Is there not a way to set up, or how we do it, collect the cans and the plastic?
I guess the biggest question I have that we should find an answer to is where would we then take it to in terms of where is the closest recycling center?
We're not paying a deposit on it.
All right, I'll go to work on that. If you guys are willing to do it, I'll go to work on it.
Okay,
That is the biggest problem, because I know it's been tried at other facilities, and nobody could generate enough bulk for them to come up to make it profitable for them to pick up the recyclables.
Well, we do it in Ossipee, and maybe we can work something out where we cage the stuff and deliver it over there, and
I think
get to keep the money.
staff and residents both would feel good, even if it didn't generate cash, they would feel better about doing the responsible thing.
Yeah, typically you'll get it through your waste management company.
We do have recycling. All of my cardboard goes into a recycling bin right now.
So you're already breaking that out through your waste management company? So
I mean, we could still do glass, cans, and plastic for sure.
They generally, if you're separating your cardboard, then you generally can put those other things out there, and they'll go ahead and pull those too, but I don't know if it'll be an extra cost, but your waste management would probably be willing to, certainly, but it may cost a little more money just to have him pick it up separated.
Chris, it's all written down if you want to check with Willie, or, well, I forget who does the bid, but it's all broken down, waste management and the cardboard, somebody else on the single stream, as I recall.
Maybe there's a non-profit too that could be willing to put a cage here for the soda or whatever, in some way figure a way to change it every year or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, though. I think the idea of the recycling is certainly a good idea if we're not really working on it.
Can I recycle a couple of those?
Yes, you can. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Representative Butler?
Thank you. In the salary line, is the budget 725? Is that what is being proposed?
Excuse me, Representative Butler, what page you on?
Yes.
It depends on which.
I was going to say, it depends on which one you have, but
Right.
yes, that's what we have. That's
I'm
based
looking
on.
at page 22 on the big
On the
budget.
big one, and what is it on the little
So
one?
what is it on the small one?
I don't see, in the small one that she gave us today, that's just posted
Expenses,
expenditures.
right.
So on the big budget that we were given originally, the salary budget line is 724.9, which is about 30,000 more, 40,000 more than the expenses through the end of the year. And I'm just wondering if you can expand upon that.
I'll pass that to Paula.
It's based on actuals, so whether or not he was full staff throughout the year, if he had openings, which he often does often, then we don't spend that money. But what we budgeted is actual FTEs that he would use if he was full staff.
No additional to
Right, no additional, it's just actuals.
So, part of our job here is to figure out if there's, you know, some line that is extreme. Is that, you know, my understanding? Is there any place that we can ask for clarification and potential reduction? And other than the Panini Grill, I'm not seeing anything. I don't know if anybody else is.
Well, I mean, I think that we had another question about the workman's compensation insurance. That certainly doesn't involve Rob. So that's whatever number whatever gets plugged in there. You know, there may be something to be said for, you know, the salary line. I noticed that the overtime line is very small. So if you had, you know, if you don't have staff, so therefore you're paying overtime, then you can, you know, the overtime would be higher, regular would be lower, but it looks like your regular time, I mean your overtime looks like it's very modest, and you should be commended for that, unless for some reason is overtime being put in the salary line. I can't.
Well, he has a lot of part-time people, so they might not necessarily get overtime, but they would get more hours. So.
But that's in the budget line, that's in the salary
Right,
line.
that's within the budget, and that's a good thing, by the way. The more part-time, the better, to a degree.
Right.
But I guess to the point would be is, you know, the bottom line question to you is that do you feel comfortable that that $724,009, and you said it was about $30,000 less is what you actually got for last year. Now, of course, there's going to be there's going to be some salary increments that you're paying more salary-wise. I mean, there's an automatic, so that's going to count for a portion of it. You know, I don't know if you happen to know what would they be? Is that going to be in April? Will they?
Usually it's April.
Receive and is that? Do we know what that's going to be? Is that?
It's roughly 14. It's 40 cents.
40 cents an hour.
Yes. Times out employees, so this comes out to roughly, I think it was 14,000.
So we're looking at about 14,000 of that. 30,000 is going to be for additional salary.
You also have another full week paying this year coming up, which will affect your.
Oh, we have an additional payroll week.
Yes.
Well, I'm comfortable knowing that it is based upon approved FTEs, and that the annualized expenditure is less because that was the reality.
How did we end up with total food versus actual? So it's 505 versus 495.
Yep. 10,000 over.
So that's a little more.
The cafe,
than
though.
The
Right?
cafe is- As long as the revenue increase is greater than the expenses on certain line items, it's a sign that the cafe typically is doing well.
And food costs are going through the roof.
I will say one thing is that we changed our group purchasing organization at the beginning of, well, it was last year, so we went into this year with Navigator. We have the most aggressive, you know, group purchasing organization that there is.
Okay.
So.
Do you feel comfortable with the 495 as being your reasonable budget for the food? Because that is,
if we have, I mean, if inflation turns, you know, and goes wild, you know, in the next 12 months, it's going to be difficult. So it depends, you know, once I hear things like they're talking about, you know, not having the dairy price supports or those types of things that nationally could change the picture, you know, if we end up with things that are staples that, you know, or a cost of corn or something like that. But,
right.
you know, normally when I look at our group purchasing organization, what they're recommending is between 5 and 8% inflation for 2013 and 12 and 13.
Well, do you feel that, you know, there's enough use a very technical accounting term called wiggle room within your budget to manage the numbers such that you would be able to reallocate, you know, some of your salary to make that all work? Or do you feel like you're being, you know, we might be crunching the food budget based on the fact that, you know, we have more cafe sales? And that's really what it really comes down to. Do you still think you can make it manage with that budget without increasing that line? Seeing how there may be a bit of cushion in the salary, you know, there may be a bit, you know, that you've utilized before, and
it's the vacancy factor that, you know, that's what it is.
But if we are increasing the amount of food that we're selling, then or
Increasing revenues.
you know, if we're increasing those revenues, is that a situation that is manageable or not?
I would think we'd consider budgeting to the heavy side on this rather than the light side. If you don't spend it, it goes back into the general fund. If you come up short, you've got to either monkey with your line item, or you got to come back and ask for a supplementary budget. If Rob says that he's inaccurate, it's going up 8 to 10%. Go with a 10% increase, and if we don't spend it, we can figure ways to save money. Then
the one thing for sure is that we never, you know, I mean, I'm always trying to save, you know, the most I can.
Absolutely.
We don't, you know, we're purchasing 3 times a week, and you know, we're looking at every single thing we buy.
This past year, we came in some $230,000 under budget for expenses. So if we don't need to spend it, we don't spend it. So it's a very conservative group of department heads.
Right. No, and I agree with that. I'm just trying, and I, you know, certainly what we want to do is try to maintain the budget. We don't want to increase expenses, but it appears that it might be a little tight for dietary to maintain that food cost budget.
I don't think we're questioning the fact that you're not spending it right.
And I think the budget might be tight, so
fast enough to the point. We want to make sure that you don't run out of money to
right now,
buy what you want.
the way I calculate my food cost, my raw food cost per meal is about $1.88. So I mean it's tight.
That's incredible. Don't forget, we've increased the room rate $25 a day, or
I understand, but I guess what I'm trying to get,
We
what
shouldn't
I'm
be
trying to
raising
accomplish
the
by
rates
this
and
is
cutting
get
the
the
food.
feeling around the room is that if he's, you know, humming in there again around the 505 number, he's still doing a great job, but we may need to find some money from that $233,000 and get it over into his department.
Exactly.
I think is what I'm trying to say, because I don't really want to boost the budget, because then that boosts the tax rate. Okay, so, but if we think if he's got maybe a little wiggle room within his management, within his department, that if he needs it, feel like that perhaps there's, you know, some money that can be diverted, so that's not an issue. I mean, I think that would be a good thing, but I think it's reasonable for us to say that he's looking at a tight line there. That's a tight line.
And that does include, at this point, both cafe and nursing home food expenses.
And the DOC.
Yeah, and DOCs.
And DOCs.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's all those things, and so it looks tight, and so, I mean, I'd like not to change the number, but I'd like to have a bit of a consensus around the room that that may be a hard number to achieve, and that, you know, that might need, you know, someday down the road, of course, the commissioners, we have a commissioner here, you know, your first step is you're going to go to the commissioners to maybe move some money from one line somewhere else and get it into his food budget line.
And hopefully we'll
Yeah.
have more than enough revenues to support that. So
Right.
it's not going to require
That's sort of
additional
the idea.
appropriations, it's just going to be
Right.
recognizing that we've had
Right.
good sales. Department of Corrections numbers go up for whatever reason we don't control. The number of sales will go up, but so won't our expenses. So we're doing it based on historical averages, but we don't know what.
How tight is your income based on the 188? I mean, how much wiggle room you got there based on 188 a meal? You don't run out the number of meals and put in an exact amount in the budget. Don't you allow for some increase somewhere?
Well, you know, it's all based on previous actual expenses, you know,
Yeah, I
so,
know that.
and then the menu,
It seems very logical to do it that way in today's market. So.
well, it's, you see, in the past, we've been pretty flat in terms of inflation, but this could be worrisome this year.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, I'm
Do
sorry.
you get any money to match that from the government toward your meals? Like, you know, some of them have,
No, actually, we're looking right now, we lost a program that we're trying to recover right now, but we were receiving USDA commodity foods every other month, and we were dropped from the program without warning.
why?
Well, claiming that we no longer qualified for how the government is, you know, looking at, you know, the needy population, that our population wasn't fitting their criteria. So we have, you know, a call into that program director and try to say, you know, what are you talking about? You know, we have, you know, I'm not sure what the mix is for Medicaid residents, but
About
What were the
65%.
qualifications that you weren't meeting?
that's what I, you know,
That's what we're trying to find out.
it was really not even in writing. It was a
Right,
phone
they
call
never
from
really-
the director of the distribution for the CAP program that just called and said, oh, by the way, you know, we have, you know, a scheduled pickup for Tamworth on Thursday, but you're not included. And I said, what are you talking about? And he just said, you know, the government, their USDA program director called them and said that, you know, our application had not met the federal guideline.
Don't they ever tell
Who was
you
the
what
person?
percentage
What's the
you're
organization?
getting back from the government?
It's federal, it's USDA.
Not yet.
United States Dairy Association.
Well, it certainly sounds like we should double check those guidelines and revisit that
I
application.
can't believe that we're not eligible.
Yeah, that
Who
seems-
called you? Cap called you?
Yes, well, but it was Randy, the Concord director of it.
What?
I'll tell you in one second. Let me just pull this up here.
Interesting to check with other states to see if it's the same
How
here.
much money are we talking about?
Well,
$5,000 or $6,000, $7,000, I forget.
yeah, annualized. I mean, they were kind of reducing the amount that we were receiving. I mean, you go. It's mostly geared towards like the soup kitchens and, you know, the pantries and those types of things.
And since
So-
our residents are housed and institutionalized, then they are not the target population.
I think that's what it was.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
In terms of the income from meals on the revenue page, that includes the DOC and any other revenue coming into dietary. Okay.
Commissioner, it's Randy Emerson. He's the EFAP director, Emergency Food Assistant Program Director for the Community Action Program in Concord.
Randy Emerson?
Yes. Very personable. I mean, he would like us to be on the program, but he said, you know, however this USDA entity said, you know, we're not eligible.
You don't have his name, do you? A number?
I do. His number is 225-3295.
Thank you, Rob.
Okay. Well, I think that, just take that under advisement. But do you happen to, so from the previous year to date, because the cafe's been open for business for the full calendar year, as I recall, and where the money from the cafe, was it being put in with income for meals? Is that where it was being put in?
Yes.
Do we have an idea of what that final number is, or is that part of what you were calculating revenue-wise?
Well, the revenue sheet, yeah, we don't have the final figure that's in there. It was through November that Kathy had last. I don't know which one you have, what you have yours through right now, but, so yeah, on Monday, I could give you a final figure as to what.
Okay, because
If you
just to
want
kind of
to broken
double.
down between cafe and the jail, because it's all lumped in as one figure. Are you
If it's
looking
all lumped in
for-
as one, that's fine, but
Okay.
I would like to see if that number is around 265,000, the combination of those two numbers, or if that combination number is, you see what I'm saying?
Right.
We're breaking it out now, but we don't know how, I'd like to see what the final total number is and see if that breakout somehow is close to that number, make sure we're not overestimating that revenue.
I think it would be a benefit to know the breakout between the corrections and this facility. I think it would be a help to know.
It may certainly be a benefit if it's not difficult to extrapolate that number to 2.
I think if you look on the jail, you'll see that it's there.
Yeah, they should, on their expense side, yes,
Yeah.
it should be.
And
I
they're
don't know
supposed
when
to
you have
equal.
it.
Okay, it's been the same characters.
That figure is.
I don't know if we have that final number. Do you have a final 12/31 number, Commissioner?
I got
Through November?
11, 13.
Observation here, I just find it hard to believe that this far into the new year, and we don't all have the same numbers, and we're looking a month behind. It just, you know, from a town perspective, as a selectman, you know, we have to have all our things done by the second week in the month. I just find it hard, we're a month behind, and then I know from the last time, the papers that everybody were getting were all different. I just think we all need to see apples to apples, we're all looking at the same thing.
I don't disagree, and, you know, we're certainly hopeful that by Monday we'll have something like this for the whole, so we can look, but we do at least have, these numbers are as close to year end as they can get. They're for the nursing home itself. You know, these numbers here, but we don't have the revenues, we just have the expenses, so. Were you able to come up with that under, House of Corrections?
34,360 from you to the jail.
So it's budget for 234?
Yeah.
So they just get,
34,360, and they're all purchased here.
Right, except for maybe that.
so that's the money they're billed for?
Yeah,
They're
they-
billed that amount?
Yeah.
Yes. That's good.
And
So
I just
that-
put this away, but I thought that the income from food and from the revenue line was 230 something, so.
On the, yes, it was,
That's the budget.
right, and that's, we usually use the budgeted figure from the jail. If they give it to me, we add that, and now we're breaking down another line for the cafe. For this year, we'll have 2 separate lines.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
yes.
I apologize that I have to leave. There was one question, and probably fairly easy to answer. No mission statement was found?
No, mission statement was found.
Good. If you, at some point, if you could find a way to forward that to me,
I'd be glad to. In fact, I just redid it for actually an admissions policy that I wanted to start with the mission part, so I actually revised it as a new proposed one.
I got it here, Ed, I think.
Okay, well, I'm going to run anyway, so if you have a copy I can take, that would be great.
Find out it'll be another situation.
All right, well, do we have any more questions about the food service?
Oh, here it is.
I guess the one question from Representative McConkey was whether or not the panini grill was used for,
I'll give my copy to us.
as strictly as a cafe function, or if it was used to actually prepare sandwiches for the residents.
Both. Because we have a separate menu for our residents. If they don't like what's on the meal, there's a restaurant-style menu that they have, so they can select grilled cheese, ham and cheese, turkey sandwich, etc. So we do some fast food cooking for them as well. And the alert residents will even call down and say, gee, you know, what's the soup? What soup do you have tonight? Because we make a special soup every day as well. So they may opt for, you know, something other than the menu that we had programmed for them. But the panini grill also is a revenue producer, so that I can, you know, try to, you know, entice employees of the nursing home who are receiving free meals into purchasing a meal. So, I mean, I know there's been discussion from time to time about why are your prices so low. The prices are so low because my competition is myself and a free meal. So I'm trying to get that section of, you know, the population to say, gee, you know, I get a free meal, but no, let me pay $3.99 for a sandwich. And, you know, we're being successful, but it takes time.
Okay.
So it's trying to get that menu mix, and then hopefully, you know, it may not be my place to say, but look at that line item in the collective bargaining agreement the next time it comes up, and, you know, maybe think about what it costs the county for free meals, because I'd like to have that revenue.
Mr. Chairman, a general comment. When this building was done, it was built and furnished and with remarkable restraint in terms of not everything wasn't padded. In many new buildings, you know, in the furniture and furnishings, all kind of things get bought, anticipating they might be needed because there might not be a chance to do it. That wasn't the case here. You built a building that was just right. You outfitted and furnished it just right. You didn't buy extra. So the corresponding result of that is now we'll be coming up to 2 years post-opening in September. You know, there are things that you didn't buy just the panini press could have been bought with a new building, but at that time, who would have known if it would be used? Rob took the conservative tack of taking essentially a home-style one and experimenting. So it's remarkable that as you go through closets around this building, you don't find a lot of things sitting in there that have never been used. It was done, and of course the beauty of that is I think it generated tremendous savings over the appropriation, but the commissioners and the staff and everybody involved in the building committee showed remarkable constraint.
Thank you. All right, well, if we don't have any more questions for Robert, thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, so I guess, were you able to find the mission statement?
No, I had it, and Stephen Brown was on the same, with the new admissions policy that Howard established. It was on that. We only had a few copies, so I gave my copy to Steve.
Okay. Do you have access?
I can get that very easy.
Okay. So did we find out more about the workman's comp question, that they were this generic number that didn't seem to be in line with the increases in salaries?
Okay, it said that's Kathy Gary's figure. I don't know who gives that to her or where she gets that. She gives me one sheet with workman's comp figures for each department, what to plug in, and the same thing for insurance. So that's all generated from the county business office. And it's been the same, I think, every year for a long time.
Gone up quite a bit this year, in every other department. Double, not here, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I said I would never.
Street there.
Right.
I can give you some figures if you want to see them, but
well, it certainly begs the question, have we had a chance to even ask her?
I don't know if anyone asked or not.
Workman comp for the farm, Paula, is up almost 30%.
Really?
The sheriff's department, it's
Yeah, our figures did not change from last year to this year. The ones Kathy gave me were the same.
workman's comp again here is up almost 30% for the dispatch center. For maintenance, 2010 it was $29. This year was $219, so
Yeah,
3
no,
years
mine
it's
is
gone
still
up
the same.
substantially. They all have.
Could you double
Yes.
check that figure, because that would make sense that all these others have gone up so much and yours.
Well, this is the sheet she gave me, and that's what's on here. For nursing, it was 110, that's what we budgeted for, and that's what was budgeted last year. So,
It didn't go up. Oh, you know what?
Okay, well, sounds good to me. Sounds good for the taxpayer.
Why are we arguing?
Okay, well, like I said, just don't have any surprises at the end. Okay, so. All right, so I guess next is, underneath the nursing department, we're looking at those numbers. Proposed new mission. Do we have the old mission statement?
I can
Or
get
the
that.
current missions statement?
This is the proposed, which would, but I can certainly get you the old one as well. I can get that in writing, or I can get the one that was mounted in the old building, whichever. What is your pleasure?
Just in writing when you get a chance. We don't need to do that now.
Okay, that's,
I was just curious. Part of my curiosity was that, our mission, regarding our mission statement to the neediness part of it. If you look at the mission statement, there really isn't anything in there that says anything about those who can't care for themselves. It's only about people who need care. That is not part of, we had that discussion last time, whether or not that was part of the mission statement of the facility, was if that was in there.
now where that'll get interpreted, and I just printed off the first page, the commissioners have only just have received this being the fourth draft. The need part gets developed in other parts of the actual policy, and it does put preference to need being important. First and foremost being as it even says here, county residents, but then it is needs based in terms of the order of application. Now that's different than having it included in the mission, but at least it seemed to address the same need.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that we're moving forward on this. And so next we're on the nursing department, and I think we had some questions about the hours there. Is this increase?
What page would that be on the new?
It's, 5140 is the nursing department.
Page 3 on the one I got.
and the ones I gave out today.
Page 3, right? That's short.
Yeah, yeah. So it appeared that we were increasing, because there was quite a big jump in the M&A, medication nursing assistants. A little drop in the charge nurse. And so, our question was that today we wanted to see if any and all increases in number of hours allocated.
It's not really number of hours allocated. What I did was I reallocated people that were in positions that I had some LNAs that are actually M&As, and they were working more as an M&A than an LNA, so I reallocated them to my M&A line where they belong. The LNA line went up because I'm proposing a wage increase for LNAs.
Over and above the 40 cents.
Yes. Correct. And I have that documentation as to rationale why.
Okay, you have that with you?
I do.
Excellent.
Our LNAs here start out at $10 an hour. They do not see an increase at all, except for a negotiated increase, until they've been here 5 years, and then they go up to $10.50 an hour. Through the 2011 survey of county homes, the average LNA, which I don't know if you guys have copies, the average LNA of all county homes, the lowest they're paid is $11.44 an hour. So even with our 40-cent increase in the salary line that's negotiated, our LNAs will only make it up to $10.40 an hour, which is still $1.44 less than the average for any other county home.
Aren't we giving them something extra though, to bring them up?
I'm proposing something this.
About $1 an hour more or something?
No, I actually broke it down because we do have, I looked at the salary range, the range for the counties. It ranges from $11.44 an hour to $17.44 an hour. We do have some.
Excuse me, Becky, are any of those unions? Are they all?
They're all unions, it's all county.
All unions.
All county.
So we're talking apples to apples.
Yeah, I'm not comparing them to Huggins or anything like that. This is all county. So what I did is I broke down my people. I broke down the LNAs from the very highest paid to the very lowest paid. And I have requested my raises according to a tier, because according to union contract, I can't have, anybody new coming in earning more than anybody that's been here. So for approximately 18 of the LNAs, and it has gone up a couple because we've filled some empty positions, I've allocated $1 raise for them, because they're at the lowest. They're between $10, their average pay is between $10 and $11.
So a total of about $1.40 an hour between what's coming with the contract
and the 40 cents. That will still leave them. That will still leave them 4 cents under the lowest paid LNA anywhere else in the state.
That's a starting salary, or that's an average?
That's a starting.
Does the cost of living compared to here in other parts of the state have anything to do with that, or doesn't that really make any difference?
No, this is just based on, they ask us every year in the county homes to fill out what your salaries are for certain positions, and then they run it through their programming and average it out. So I asked for $1 for roughly 18, 19 people that are on the low tier. In the medium tier, I've asked for 75 cents increase. And then in the upper tier, which I have roughly 15 people at, they're at the highest, and they pretty much hit our high tier here, I've asked for 50 cents.
And what's their average pay now?
Their average income right now, hourly rate is somewhere, it goes from $14.31 to $18.32.
Do you have any idea, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Go right ahead.
Do you have any idea what we're up against for competition in this area?
For pay?
Pay for either the public or
I know
the
they can go.
private?
I know they can go in other businesses in the area and earn more than $10 an hour starting pay.
Okay.
No, but I mean LNAs from the Clipper home or whatever it is now, and from the one up in North Conway. How do our rates compare?
I don't know what their salary rates are. I went on what was based on counties.
Okay.
That would be.
Yeah.
Important.
We would like to see the comparison between this nursing home and the other nursing homes in the county. So that's what we requested at the previous meeting.
That's what I've got, from the counties. Do you want it
No,
broken down?
we want it from the other nursing homes in this county.
From,
That's what we requested at the last meeting.
we may not be able to get that because they do not have to share that information with us because they're private entities.
Okay.
I've tried to get it out of Mineral Springs. I've tried to get it out of our hospital down here, and I've yet to be able to get a personnel call back.
You want to have the comparison for private entities, for private nursing home?
Yes, we're interested in finding out what people who want to be LNAs in this county, what job opportunities are out there and how this facility lines up against those facilities.
I will try again.
I think it's important, Beck, because they're not gonna leave here to go to work for another nursing home too far away. Maybe Stratford is the closest, and that may be one, but they certainly are gonna look around at private institutions around here if they're looking for a job. And so I think it's important whether, maybe if only one gives us an idea, at least we find out whether we're $2 or $3 below what they're paying too, because people that don't have to drive very far aren't going to stay here and work for $2 or $3 less. And what we pay these people that do all the work is not very high.
I will try that again, but that's why I took it off the county, because I could not get regional.
Okay, well that's the number we're interested in seeing.
And that does come to approximately $61,000.
Your current increases with $1 an hour?
With $1, the 75 cents, and the 50.
And how about the 40 cents? That's not included?
That's not included, because that
So
was...
just the catch-up raises would be roughly, would you say 51,000?
61,800.
61?
61,867.
Okay.
Okay, so do you have that broken down on a piece of papers? Copies for us?
For whom I'm breaking it down for?
Yes.
I'll have to deduct the names out of it, but yes,
Okay.
I do.
Or just in summary form, based on like the categories that you were generalizing with, so we have something so we can refer to in the future.
Yep.
So there are no extra hours nursing in this nursing department in this budget over last budget.
We put one extra person in, and that's a night nurse. Because right now the supervisor, who's the extra hands, if anything goes wrong, actually runs a unit in this facility at night.
Okay, so and that's an additional.
It's already in my. It's already in the line item, and it comes to what?
Well, it doesn't, because the LPNs went down, but
Yeah.
these the M&As went up. So even though it looks like you increased the position in more like the M&A line item, but you just moved people around,
Right.
is what you did.
So we
how
don't
many
have that
additional-
clinical coordinator's job anymore either.
That's,
We never filled that.
but that's still
It's still
budgeted,
budgeted.
because that's still a position.
So how
that's
many additional hours are
open. Just the one.
contained in the new budget? 2,000 hours? One person, one full-time
One
person?
yes.
So 2,000 hours.
2,080 hours.
2080.
That's what I wanted to know.
The only other thing, the reason I hit the M&As too, is if you look, the last salary thing that has ever been put together here for the county home, for the nursing home for nursing, is 2008. That's the last time pay scales were looked at, was in 2008. And that's what I'm working on.
Okay. All right, well, did anyone else have any other questions regarding the nursing department? You guys do a fine job there. Obviously, people are well cared for. It's certainly renowned. So the medical supplies, that looks about right.
Yeah.
So in general, it's the LNAs were about $1 more an hour. Is
Yeah,
what
by
you're
the time you
proposing?
average it out, but yeah, I have some at $1, I've got 15 at 75, and I've got 15 at 50.
And you can't, Becky, on a union contract, you can't just increase the lower tiers.
No, I have to make sure that nobody is earning at a higher, coming in is earning a higher rate. than
Well,
anybody that's-
okay, let's
that-
theoretically say
Same
you lifted the
contributions
amount of
people.
money and it didn't make it higher than the next level. Could you come in and say, okay, you that are here for the first year are gonna get 50 cents more, but nobody else is? You're gonna
No,
give it to
you
all of them,
have to
right?
do, actually, that came up because there was concern that if I increased one group like the LNAs, I'd have to increase the LPNs, but it is broken out. I did talk to the union people about that. They know I'm going for the LNAs because our LPNs are right in the range of what's being paid in the county, other county homes, and so are our RNs at present time.
We had that same problem in the town day. We wanted to give one person an increase, and the union said we couldn't do it unless we gave everybody. And so what we did is we eliminated the position, created a new supervisory position, moved the person into it, and gave them money.
It's more than one way to skin a cat. All right, well, let's see. Well, I guess that's really the only question we had, you know, at the nursing department, at least what I had. I wanted to find out where that numbers were. Seems pretty good otherwise, but we really appreciate an idea of what the competitive nursing homes are offering for salary and benefits to their, you know, for new employees, to see how we sit in competition with those folks. That was something that I think was an interest to all of us.
The LNA's got a lot of overtime.
Not anymore. We are really looking at staffing, and we are staffing now at a little bit better than we had been, because if you have one call out, it's easier to go back. Whereas if you have one call out and you're so tight staffed that creates a major issue that you're going to end up not having enough people to care for residents. But no, they pick up overtime if they want it. And a lot of our part-timers will pick up, which isn't truly overtime until they hit 40 hours. So we try to do that. We do have per diems. Our per diem usage has gone way down because we have got the positions that were vacant filled up now. So they're getting less time. So we do use them if we have an empty spot. But again, they get better paid than a normal LNA. So therefore you try to decrease that.
Can your part-timers pick up overtime, which drives the salary up, and still remain part-time?
They can pick up, there's no saying other than me saying you can't work 24 hours straight, how much time they pick up.
Okay.
But we try to use part-timers because they don't start the overtime until they hit 40 hours, so. And per diems don't pick up overtime per se, they're in there to slot in if we need them.
So, you know, in follow-up to that, when a shift does become available due to sickness, do we, as you said, we try to find people who will not go into be in overtime if they pick up the shift. So you control who works these coverage shifts?
Well, what we do is we go around and ask people if they're willing to pick up extra time, or there's a sign-up sheet, and we know who's signing up and who's there. So a lot of our part-timers will pick up before our full-timers will. If it's to the point that I need to pay overtime, I will pay overtime. Sometimes it comes to the need where I may offer an incentive because we've got enough shifts that we've got to get filled because of sick calls, i.e. today. We've had 5, 6, 7 sick calls. I'm to the point where we've gone through everybody that's worked in this building to see who's going to pick up.
Okay. But you manage who does get to cover the shift. It's not managed by the employee.
No, no, no.
As far as the overtime is concerned.
No.
If somebody is...
I have to approve it, I get spoken about it, and I'm actually the one that even says at this point, we've got to offer incentive. Like by noontime today, I knew we weren't getting any response. We had to go into incentive mode. The next step then, if I can't get anybody then, would I go to say, I'm going to have to go with an agency because I have nobody in this building that's willing to work.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of times I even pick up the shift myself so that
Right,
we're not
okay.
bringing somebody in.
Well, that's good. That's, I think was, our main concern, at least from past practice, was there just wasn't a situation where people were signing up for covering shifts and being at an overtime rate instead of having a part-timer being able to do it.
We try to limit that as much as possible. But sometimes it does boil down, if I need an RN and the only
Sure.
person that signs up is somebody that's gonna go
Sure.
into overtime, then I'll use
Yes.
them.
As long as you are the person who's managing that.
Yeah, we know
then
who's
I think
signing
that's
up.
what we were looking for, that you were managing that, not the employees were managing
Yeah,
it. That's
no,
what
no.
we were looking for.
Yeah.
Commissioner Babson.
Becky, are you at liberty to set the incentive? Can you say to one person, I'll give you $1 an hour more over and above the time and a half?
No,
And the
the-
next person $2, or is it?
It's
is it
a
across
set
the
fee
board?
of incentive that's always been used here.
And is that by union contract or just by policy?
I think it's by policy. When I came here, I was told what incentive was, and that's what I've used for incentive.
Well, I think sometime when you're gonna come into commissioners meeting, we ought to discuss the possibility of changing the various incentives in the case that you might entice somebody with a little more money to come here rather than pay for an LNA. I think I saw the other day it was $36 or $37 an hour, and that young lady that's working for the temporary isn't getting paid that. So maybe if we could, if it'd be more than we get here, maybe if we gave you the leeway to increase the incentive in a tight situation, we might be able to.
Well, we're also working on seeing if we just can't get our attendance to improve.
You do what?
Get our attendance to improve. And that's going to have to be through negotiation too, because, again, because of contract items, an episode is 3 days. So if you're sick one day, you can't get into the doctor until day 3. Why bother coming in day 2? Because if you come in day 2, have to go out day 3, then you've created another episode. So some of the contractual language works against us as well, because some of my staff, if they're sick day 1, they've called their doctor and they can't get in to be seen until day 3, they would probably come in day 2 if they knew they weren't going to have another episode against them because they took day 3 off. Because if you get 8 episodes, you can be terminated. So in a course of a year, so we've discussed that even at the union level. I've discussed it with the union people, saying, that almost entices people to take 3 days off, because why would you want another episode against you if you get reprimanded for having that kind of sick time? So it works against you.
This is a union rule.
Right.
Well,
people
Will you
do
make a
get,
point sometime of sitting down and educating me on the intricacies of the union contract? I can read it, but they don't function until you see how somebody's worked it around the home here.
Yep, anytime.
and part of, and now within the union contract, I don't know if I see it right here, as far as there's, I know it's within the dispatch and sheriff that there's a compensation, because they have so much paid sick time.
Yes, they earn so much sick time, yeah.
Yeah, they have earned sick time, and if they don't take it at the end of the year,
They get it
they cash it
after
for like 2/3 of the value, or?
No, it's at 100%.
It's at 100%, but you have to work so many, isn't it?
It's anything over 35 days
Yeah.
we can cash in. That's not budgeted anywhere. So it's an added, sometimes somebody's line item might be over on their salaries, but that's because they bought back the sick time. We don't budget for that because we don't know who's going to have the sick time to buy back.
Okay, so that's not,
But
that
it's
isn't
not
a
a
budget
different
line.
line item, it's, no.
That's
And
good,
And
because-
vacation time's not budgeted for either, so every
Right.
time you have somebody go out on vacation, you've
You're
got to
paying
pay
2
somebody
people.
else, but there's no budget line, nothing built into our budget to cover sick or vacation time.
Well, vacation time, isn't that, don't you figure that if someone's working 50 weeks and then they have 2 weeks coming, when you file your report or your budget report, you don't have the extra 2 weeks of vacation?
No,
They've
they've never.
Why not?
No, never let us add that in.
They've never let us do it. That's why sometimes we run over, because
You're
we're not
paying 2
budgeted.
people.
Well, that's crazy.
I agree.
I suspect that.
You'd have a lot higher budget though.
Yeah, well, someone other than us would look at that as being an accrued liability, and the balance of budget one year decided not to carry accrued liabilities. And it should be there for proper business planning.
Well, especially in nursing, like in our office, it's not as bad. If I take vacation, nobody does my job. It's there when I get back. Nursing obviously can't do that. Somebody else has to come in and do their job.
So, you don't budget the vacation, then you're jimmying the budget somewhere else to get out to pay somebody.
Or very careful staffing.
An open
That's
position.
nuts.
Well, one way or the other, it's either part of the salary line and they've made that adjustment, or, you know, some of it gets compensated from the overtime line. You know, if they're on it, you know, that's part of where some of that vacation money could come from. You know, there's, you know, and obviously during the course of how their budget's set up, there must be a little bit of flexibility within it.
Mostly from unfilled positions.
Right.
It's mostly, it's
Right.
not the scheduled part being over budgeted, but when somebody's out, family, medical leave, or something else, that position isn't paid or filled, there's money left over. There are some shifts, unfortunately, that go unfilled. You know, we don't like to run short, but that does happen on occasion, and that's, so it does balance out, but it is not the best way to plan. But it does, and, you know, when you play with enough people in big numbers, it does average out.
Right. So I apparently the number is there, because we haven't had a problem with going over the number. I mean, but there may be a little bit of flexibility depending on time of year or time of day when you might be able to get away with not having someone on staff. Other times of year you really need to staff that slot. So, but it's budgeted for the whole year.
So that means family leave isn't shown either? And that was 6,600 hours last year.
Yeah, we had 14 people. Well, just this past summer, we had 16, our peak was 16 FMLAs at once.
Now, some of those positions were refilled with other shifts, and others weren't.
I mean,
And some
we
of
did
those
use
people
our per
probably didn't get
diems and
paid.
stuff like that, and some didn't get paid, but that does create, I mean, and we worked short if we had to, but then those positions like vacation aren't covered up.
But you just said that if they go out on family leave and they use up their vacation time and they use up their sick time, I don't know whether the sick time shows here or not, but vacation time, you already said didn't, so that, I mean, even if they're using it up and we're paying them, it doesn't show.
But it does show that I've had to increase the payroll line because I've had to bring somebody in to replace them.
All right. Yes.
We may have discussed this the
Representative
last time. How about Obamacare? I think you may have asked it the last time. How does that fit in with your insurance thing? I mean, they're projecting all sorts of things, insurance rates going skyrocketing, you know, cutting people's hours so they don't get benefits. Have you thought that out, or is that anywhere in this projected budget?
It's not in this projected budget because when our federal surveyors came through, they actually did not cite us on it, which they can't because there's no magic formula for staffing. But because of the size of the building, the private rooms, and the way that it's laid out, one of them actually said they would prefer we had a little bit more staffing on board. It's very difficult. When I came here, there's part-time positions, and yes, so you don't get benefits and stuff, but if you have 2 part-timers call out, you've now decreased your staffing by 2. Whereas if you have a full-timer that's in that position and 1 calls out, it's easier to replace 1 shift than it is to try and replace people on 2 people on the same shift because they're part-time. So there was a lot of part-time and per diem in 12 and 16 hours. Well, I don't know, if somebody calls in that's doing a 16-hour shift, it's almost impossible to get those 2 shifts covered. So we've gone back right now to the 8-hour shifting. Like I say, we're at a level right now, if everybody comes in and they're not sick, that if we had 1 or 2 people call out, we're okay. I don't know how Obamacare is going to affect us just because of the pure layout of this building. If you have 2 people working on a wing, which is what our nurses' aides average, is 2 people on a household. If they're tied up in a room with 1 resident, that means everybody else is sort of left, you know, high and dry. So we're keeping an eye on it. If it comes down to that, we'll go back to doing the part-times and really re-looking at our staffing. But in this building alone, it's going to be very difficult to decrease staff any more than they were when they moved over.
Yeah, I'm not trying to decrease staff. You just hear them talking. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Paula? You
Go
just
ahead.
hear on television what companies are doing, and on the other hand, we hear that they're going to project some big increases in insurance costs. And I don't know when that would kick in, and that could dramatically affect the budget.
It can. And again, another reason pushing for the LNAs, and what I'm hearing, you know, through staff, we all took the 2% increase in our withholding taxes, and people are looking at increase in insurance rates and everything else. So even with the increase we give people, we're not anywhere meeting what they've lost in an income, and that's going to impact too. People are going to start moving around to where they can get, right, and where they can get the better pay to cover their expenses now.
Howie, I know you want to do.
I think we're going to be okay with Obamacare. The biggest exposure we have is if it becomes a requirement that staff at a 20-hour-a-week level will be eligible for health insurance. That part we don't know. We're already doing that, I think, at 32. So that's, if we have an exposure, it's for the staff that are working 20 hours but not 32. If it becomes a requirement to provide or subsidize insurance, we could have some unanticipated expense.
Okay, we'll just have to step out.
Okay. All right. Well, that's sounds good. That's really all the questions I have for the nursing department. I think we're on to plant operations, and we're looking for a kind of a breakdown in that medical insurance since it really jumped up. We wanted to double check that number. Thank you.
The medical insurance actually reflects the actual breakup of the department. So I think there's Bob and 6 guys.
Well, I was going to say, we had 2 new people within the past year. Since we've been here, we've added 2 new people, so that's 2 more people getting health insurance. But yeah, all our medical insurance is based on actuals. So it's actually who's getting medical insurance at the time.
Okay. That line item is actually allocated out based on use.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no extra
They
in
were
there.
also planning for and planning the building,
What?
the 2 people.
Yes.
That was said all along?
Yes, we
The
had.
increase of 2 people.
Right. Okay. And we did double check, and that was exactly where we were at.
Yep.
Okay. And then we're looking for a little breakdown in the building repair and maintenance, since it jumped from 20,000 to 40,000.
This is something that Bob has typed up. I can make copies for everybody.
What page you on the plant operations still?
Yes.
Correct.
And your maintenance?
082, I believe it is.
Maintenance labor? Where else are you?
No, 081.
081. Care of grounds?
No, 081, building repair and maintenance.
Oh, building and repair maintenance.
Yeah. Because it's going from 20 to 40,000. But that's just due to the new contract for the elevators, for all the checks that he has to do on a yearly basis.
Things that we didn't have in the other building,
Right.
you're talking a second generator, 3 elevators.
Okay.
We do, as with any new building, you do get hit after the first year where virtually everything's paid for, essentially as part of warranty service. After that year, it becomes the responsibility of the owner, in this case, the company.
Okay. So is there any movement toward being able to do this maintenance in-house, or?
Some things we can't. We're required emergency generator has to be with certified technicians. Elevator care, elevator service specifically has to be. by Department of Labor certified trained people. Certainly the fire alarms, a lot of the, we have a lot of the same systems we talked about, the resident security systems are actually computer-based, and those services have separate contracts that we can't really manage ourselves.
Okay. So it looks like in the breakdown of the $17,000, which is the lion's share of the 20,000, that those items need to be done for, those inspections need to be done for code
and regulation. I forget how many smoke detectors we have in this whole building that have to be tested and inspected by an independent party.
Mm-hmm.
The sprinkler systems, I think we have both glycol and water systems that have to be tested and maintained by independent contractors.
Okay. So it's basically, overall, it's due to the fact that for the first year we got the maintenance for free as part of the new equipment, and now we're purchasing these contracts.
So we should not be seeing an increase like this again. This is a one-time increase to reflect the ownership part.
And it also appears in 2010, $40,000 was also what they were paying, is the kind of the history of that line.
So we're actually going back to the same.
Pardon me? Did I see that sheet that was the explanation?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I thought everybody got one. I apologize.
Thank you.
I didn't realize
I don't have one either.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought they were handed out to everyone. I apologize.
No.
I'm referring to the
I don't
sheet.
have one either.
Oh, I'm referring to the
Paula,
sheet.
what
I just assumed that it was just being passed around while I was looking at it. I apologize. Okay. I feel fairly confident about that. I mean, from my worksheet from November, I can see that in 2010 we did spend about
Dave, you want to pass it around
4,000.
this way, please?
All right, so we had the laundry, and I guess what kind of brings to light in the laundry, we're going to look at the hookup of the hot water for the laundry.
We got a bid this week of $38,000 to hook it up. Bob wrote a memo that they're using approximately 20 gallons of hot water, 200 gallons of hot water a day to do laundry, and it may not be beneficial to hook it up.
Okay. So currently now, the annex is being fully heated by the boilers?
Yes, but the hot water is not, they didn't hook up the hot water to the laundry equipment.
I'm sorry, I should have been more specific. The pellet boilers are heating the annex, or the old boilers are?
No, the pellet is heating the annex, but the propane is heating the hot water for the laundry.
Okay, all right.
Right in the same building, a few feet apart, and for some reason somebody overlooked the fact that you put the hot water up to the laundry boiler while you were doing it.
But they're able to pipe into the existing heat,
Yep.
but they didn't pipe into the existing
They're able to
hot
do it,
water.
they just have it for $38,000, they're very able to do it.
They were supposed to do that, right?
No, it wasn't, they claim it wasn't in the contract, but that was one of the problems.
We discussed it, I can remember that.
Having down Bonnet, Page and Stone as your ears and eyes, now they say that it wasn't in the contract, and the bid is 38 something, right? Asha, 38,000 something to hook up. It was on your desk
Oh, when?
yesterday.
I didn't see.
Oh. Wow, that seems like an awful lot of money just to pipe in some hot water.
They had valves and controls and pipes and.
You need a heat
they had it broken
exchanger.
down.
The heat exchanger itself is and to do that just for 200 gallons a day, it would be very efficient, but 200 gallons isn't, if the whole building, if everybody's using all the bathroom sinks and the kitchens over there, it would make perfect sense, but for 200 gallons a day, it's an expensive way.
Yeah, just for now, just keep what we have.
So that you know why it's only 200 gallons a day. We're not doing all the laundry there. A good portion of our laundry, the bulk of our laundry is actually contracted out to general linen, so it's not being done here. So it's good to have that as an option, but I would agree with Bob that the cost recovery probably isn't there.
Not at the moment, for sure. Okay, so but the hot water in the building, in the new building is
It is.
from the public. Okay. All right, so we got to the bottom line of that, and you know, kind of to that end, we hadn't really decided exactly if the laundry was going to be right there anyway. So from line of things, not hooking them up may have made a little bit of sense, because what if we decide that the laundry is going to be on the other end of the building during the course of figuring out what we're going to do over at the annex? So it may not be the worst case scenario that we're not dealing with that. You know,
I think you made a good decision, and I think when the resolution to how that building is going to be used in the future, that $38,000 should be a consideration to the renovation cost at that time.
Right.
And there could be cost recovery at that point.
Right.
So I mean, it'd be prudent then where it isn't now.
Okay. I don't think there was there any other, I don't think we really had many other questions regarding laundry, because it seemed like it stayed pretty close to the year before. You know, so it's just about, there's really not a big difference between the two budgets. We even went down a little bit, it looks like. So let's move on before we find something to add. Let's go on to housekeeping. So in the housekeeping, we added, there's a request to add 32 additional hours. That's a week?
That is a week.
This is where you're on housekeeping now?
Yes.
Yep, housekeeping, which, sorry, laundry, that'd be what, page 6?
On 9 on the big one.
And why have it on 26 on what I'm looking at? But the thing, the year-to-date expense numbers, it's page 6. The reason I'm really not looking at that, because it doesn't have the new budget in there, so you have to look at both. So when you look at the budget increase,
The new budget is 463,900. 464,000.
For last year.
no, that's last year.
That's last year.
463,909 is last year.
475.
Adopted budget, you're correct, I'm sorry.
And then
The new, the department heads was 475,172.
Yeah. So that one has gone up about $12,000, and we've added 32 hours, but we've decreased the insurance.
Correct.
So we're looking about approximately around $30,000, $28,000, $27,000 for additional salary on that line, which could, now this person will be full-time. We're going to hire one person for this 32-hour job, or are we looking to, is this supplemented as part-time?
I have my note is one person plus a weekend person for $10 an hour. That's my note.
I don't think we've decided how
I
the
was
32 hours would be split. We have one person who's working 24 to 32 who might pick up part of those hours, and then hiring a weekend person besides. So there'll be some variation there. We actually like to hire part-time people because it gives us more flexibility, and from a practical perspective, it reduces insurance expense.
Exactly, and that's, I guess, to the end of why I was asking that question, is if, we are anticipating an additional part-time people, or, are we looking at more?
I'd rather have 2 16-hour people than one 32-hour person at this point in the department, so that we have more on call, but that's sometimes what gets decided based on the right people who apply.
So this is a 7, so so it's 7 days a week divided by 32 hours? I'm sorry, you said it's...
No, it'd be 32 additional hours throughout the week. So, I mean, that would typically be 4 8-hour shifts.
Right.
She's working 8 hours, I mean, the department typically is working 8-hour shifts between first and second shifts. What it does is it guarantees that we'd have one housekeeper in each of the neighborhoods, and as often as not, we don't. So that's, it's not overdone. It's bringing us up to essentially minimum standards.
Okay.
So that you know, by comparison, the housekeepers that came over here in the old building, there were same 103 residents, but there were only, in terms of resident bathrooms, there were only 25. Over here, there's 103 resident bathrooms. There's 103 rooms instead of 30 rooms. So their workload increased by almost 3 times, while their staffing remained the same. They've done remarkably well to keep things going as they have.
Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm interested in, moving on now to the physical therapy, which is there we go, page 8 in the up-to-date sheet, and it's number 5190. And I guess something that puzzled, or the word puzzle may not be the right word, but I'm certainly interested in trying to meet these goals of that you alluded to, and we had that graph that you handed out in the first handout, the yellow one, about the percentage of the census where we wanted our the bed days to be.
Correct.
But then when I look at the physical therapy department, I see, reductions in,
That's because the two aren't related. This is a separate program of restorative aids for which there is some potential for increased billables, but this program is typically for our existing long-term care residents. Oftentimes our Medicaid residents, where if we provide physical therapy, we can get an additional revenue. The program of Medicare skilled beds doesn't actually show up here. That's actually under contract to Genesis. So we contract for the skilled services. We receive a higher reimbursement rate, and they receive payment for the actual Medicare services based on essentially we get paid a commission for what we get paid I think it's a 19% commission on the billables that they generate.
okay, and
But we get an increased room rate as a result, though.
Okay. So the line 5190.040, that's from 80,000 to 60,000. Physical therapy skilled number.
And if you look on our revenue side, our revenue is also down from 225 down to 185. They correspond with each other. So, like I said, on the revenue side, it's down. So on the expense side, it's also going to be down.
Now, our hope, of course, is to increase the revenue, even if it comes at the expense of, as long as there's a favorable margin. If we can do $30,000 more on the income side and go up $15,000 on the expense side, that would be a good day. And I hope that we could increase our restorative aid program by finding other third-party reimbursement for it.
Mm-hmm. And your mission is from 225 to 185?
Correct.
So, from where I sit, that seems to be going in the wrong direction of what our goals are supposed to be.
I agree. I think, at least our hope is that there's more potential with the restorative aid program. This is essentially our in-house physical therapy. I'd like to believe there's more potential there. We're also looking to increase our skilled nursing part, something that we haven't done. And Becky and I met yesterday with people that would suggest that we have an opportunity to generate revenues on a hospice program as well. So we're looking to see how we can capture more money, and we're also even evaluating the potential of outpatient physical therapy. We have that center. There's nothing that keeps us from welcoming in people who might be living at home in the county, who might want to come here for their therapy. And it wouldn't essentially cost us anything. We would make 19% on that transaction, which is not going to be a tremendous amount of money, but it certainly helps the cause.
So based on the percentages that you showed us, I think it was 10% skilled, 25% private, 65% Medicaid.
Correct. That's the goal.
That
wasn't last year, but
that's our goal.
It
was 75. 70 was Medicaid, 5% on the skilled.
Correct.
So we're trying to have an increase in the skilled. And
What was that figure, Chris? Those figures?
you received a copy of it, that sheet that had the yellow on the front. But you know, in general numbers, it was.
Don't doubt you for a minute.
The general numbers.
This is what he gave us today.
It was 10% for the Medicare or skilled,
Somebody took it when I was going.
25% in the private.
Oh, that sheet, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on the second page of that sheet, there's a, our goal is to have 10%, what we're looking forward to is for next year is having a goal of 10% on the Medicare, 25% in private, and the 65 in Medicaid.
That would be a wonderful balance.
That's the goal. So the question that comes to my mind, because when I see we're kind of drawing down a bit on some of this salary in those areas, are we still going to be able to meet those goals with what we have to work with in the current budget? Do you feel like that can still happen, or do you feel like that's being suppressed?
It won't be held back by that. The budget does not anticipate that resident mix. So what we would see happening is that conceivably our expenses would go up, but our revenues would go up even higher. And in business, that's not a bad thing. So it just means constantly keeping the commissioners advised of why are we going. The same thing would happen with Rob. If all of a sudden he started selling far more meals in the cafe, his food costs would go up, but his revenues would go up higher. That's still a good thing. We just have to be able to explain the variance. But the budget as proposed does not anticipate that move from 5% to 10% skilled. Because that's going to take some time and be gradual. I hope at the end of the year that we'll be at that point. But as we build now, it's almost at the end of month one. It's not going to average that by the end of the year. But our goal is for it to be that at the end of the year and to be sustainable thereafter.
Okay, so you don't feel that the amount of expense, because, well, there's always ways we can go about additional appropriations, but in totality, the commissioners are bound not to spend more money than we've appropriated, no matter what the revenues are. So that would require an additional appropriation. Okay, just due to the statutorial constraints. I mean, we only allow a total number of dollars to be spent in this budget, and that's all the commissioners can spend. If they're going to spend more than that, they have to come to the delegation and ask us to appropriate more funds toward that. Okay, so we have to have, and then there's quite a bit of money that flows back, so the commissioners have some wiggle room, there's that word again, to help appropriate money to these areas where historically you don't have as much there, okay, and they can be justified by
well, the good news is that the bulk of that skilled money being provided through Genesis is they incur the expense, and we're just getting that 19%. So at that aspect of things, it doesn't require cash out to get cash in.
So
we're safe on that. the part that we're vulnerable is with that relatively smaller part of the restorative aid program. That's still speculative. I'd hate to over budget without being able to justify. So this is what looks likely now. We hope to be able to exceed that, but I think with that essentially a $20,000 differential, that's going to be that we're going to. It'd be a good problem to come back to you for a supplemental appropriation because our revenues are too great.
Okay. So essentially, the Genesis money, we just received revenue.
Correct.
There is no expenditure out of this budget for them. We don't spend any money with them. They just send us revenue. So the fact that we might be doing more with them will not affect the amount of expenses on this sheet.
Shouldn't.
Well, we pay them.
Yes.
Bill it, so it would
Right.
be.
We get a monthly bill for Genesis. What happens is, I bill Medicare. When we get paid from Medicare, Genesis takes 81% and we keep 19% of it. But they bill us monthly beforehand, and then I recoup the money from Medicare afterwards. So yes, the more Part B therapies we do, the more we're going to pay them, but the more we're going to get. I mean, it's going to go both ways. We're going to get more revenue plus more of an expense, but there will be more of an expense.
So can you point to me where that's what line that is on the budget?
If you're in physical therapy, it would be 5190, 041 is the Part B expense.
041.
So the higher your revenues, the higher that's going to be. That line's going to be too.
And that number is, that we see an expense there, is the total amount of money? Or just what we pay? That's just what we pay Genesis. So it's less than 20. It's like 80%.
80. We pay them 81%. And we keep 19.
And that gets put into the revenue.
Correct.
Okay, so that number, but the current number is around 215,000. So if we double, the idea I guess would be if we doubled that number,
That's different from skilled. You're talking about the 10% for skilled. Part B is has nothing to do with our skilled patients. That's the line above physical therapy is skilled.
Okay.
They're two different. What happens with the skilled therapies, we pay Genesis so much per day according to what drug category they fall in, what level of care they fall in. And it's a certain amount per day. It's different for each one. And it's actually based on days.
Okay, so that number that we're trying to basically move from 5% to 10% is basically, we budgeted for $80,000, so in the previous year. So if we doubled that number, we would incur $160,000 in expense.
That's not what we actually spent. Through the end of 2012, we only paid them $47,000.
Okay, so we paid them $47,000, so it's reasonable. I guess what I'm trying to say is if we doubled it to get to the 10%,
Right.
then we're only looking at another $47,000 or $50,000. We're not talking about big dollars.
No, it's,
In order to make
and that's an annualized number, and
Right.
we won't be at that point unless we're lucky till the end of the year.
All right.
So the $60,000 compared to what the year end is should still give us enough room to grow.
Okay.
But it would be a wonderful problem if we were doing so well that we needed to look for a transfer of funds from revenues that we previously generated, to expenses that we wanted to incur. That would be
Right.
that'd be a wonderful problem.
Yeah, that kind of number is, I don't think that'll be necessary. I was just want to make sure that we weren't talking about, a big disparity between what you would need for the expense there to generate these ratios. So that's fantastic.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Why did you skip over physicians and pharmacy? Or didn't you?
He did.
Physicians and pharmacy.
It's the one right before physical therapy, 5180.
Right. Well, I think that it went down $10,000. So
That's no reason.
from the previous meeting, I just didn't have any notation, so I think that we didn't really have any questions. So
Yes.
if you have a question, please.
Well, Paula, is this where the craw under my saddle comes from?
this,
with shrink and the,
yes, that is
Okay,
under
well, yesterday-
023.
pardon me?
That's 5180-023 under consultants.
Okay. Howard and I have already talked about this, Mr. Chairman, but Wednesday or Thursday when I was signing the manifest, in there was a bill for the shrink for $4,500 for the quarter. There was $1,650 in there for the mobile dental for the month. The mobile dental had no other paperwork to go with it. And of course, so this raised some questions. And what's happening is the psychiatrist is charging us $14,000 a year for us to corral the people in here so that he can come in here and work on them and then have them and bill them. Same thing's happening with the dental, except they're using our equipment here. But Paula tells me that because it's Medicaid or Medicare, I can never keep them separate. The dentist does not bill the patient. It's included in something there.
Included on daily rate.
Yeah.
Dental is taken into
But
consideration.
Louis, Dr. Lewis,
Underpaid compared to the
he bills the hospital bills us for corralling the patients that are already here in the corral. And they bill the patients also. So between the I don't know what Dr. Lewis, or I shouldn't keep saying Dr. Lewis, but Huggins, because he's associated with Huggins. I don't know what their fee for retainer is, but it's $14,000 for a psychiatrist. It's almost $7,000, over $7,000 for the dentist, and then you put on top of that. So we're paying close to $25,000 just to retain these medical people who come here and bill the patients once they're here. I think we should be doing something to attempt to find if there are other people interested in servicing this area. Now, Representative Butler, who knows a lot more about this than me and probably most of us, says, well, one of the problems is Medicaid or Medicare, I don't know which, doesn't pay anywhere near what it costs. And so this retainer fee supposedly is making up for the difference between what they should be getting and what they are getting. I think that we ought to be looking around to see if there's other people. I think Howard told me that there was only 2 traveling psychiatrists in the area.
But they all charge. They pretty much, they do it because they can,
Right.
and we could try to, and with only 2 people essentially in this part of the state, and with one controlling 85% of the market, it's not that he's charging. Not that his fees have been going up. It's just a matter there isn't any competition, and so that seemingly for today, anyways, is the going rate. But we are constantly looking at seeing if there is any different way. The rate for Dr. Lewis's medical director is actually pretty competitive to most places.
And fairly reasonable. But the other, I'd like to see you as chairman of the subcommittee go to work down in Concord and call the board of psychiatrists or whoever and see if there aren't people that we could put together a proposal and send this thing out for bid. I think we ought to be doing it every year, regardless of whether there's only 2, and see if we can't create some competition.
I agree. And now, and if I may ask, so do you feel like there may be a limitation that we need to correct in Concord legislatively? Or
no,
I
think that while you're down there, they have a board of psychiatrists, and you must be able to get a list of psychiatrists in the state. Maybe we pick out 10 and send them out a request for proposal.
Oh, okay.
That's something to do.
But for a minute there, somehow.
We ought to be one way or another putting this out for bid, even if we save $100.
Absolutely. I agree.
And that's the only reason I wanted to go back to physician and pharmacist.
Okay, well, I think those are points well taken.
Chairman?
Yes, Representative Nelson.
I'm not sure that you get to a point where to save $100 or $500, I'm not sure that would be wise in a field where there's only a few people willing to do it. I think there has to be a sufficient return and save enough to warrant switching positions that know the people, know the facility, and just work comfortably here.
Well, I would agree with that, but you don't know that unless you ask for a request.
Absolutely.
Those are both points well taken. I'm sorry, we went. All right, so we did do recreational therapy. Is that where we were at? That's where we're at. Oh yeah, where we're at. Recreational therapy. So we have.
Why do I have a note on bus expense up 1,000, and it looks to me like it was the same as last year?
Under recreational therapy?
Yeah, bus expenses. I guess it's the line above it, 073.
It's actually down
It's
1,000.
down.
Yeah, on the budget, they actually reduced it to 3,000
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Okay. I did not have that.
from the previous year's budget.
We asked for 4 and the commissioners approved 3.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay, so we were at the salaries was for an additional person, 48 hours a week. That's why under the salaries line.
Yes.
I have 2 full-time, is it? Only one?
Just one.
This one.
Just one.
And I also have a note, 2 employees work until 7:30 p.m. Certification required. Is that bus drivers?
No, that's the actual activity aids. So we are.
Oh, the activity, that's right, it was the activity.
Our activity program doesn't end at 4, it continues into the evening staff. There is the bus driver does need to have his CLDB to have the CLD license for the big bus, and then with the passenger endorsement. And Dale does. And I think one other gal who does too, along with me, who can drive the bus.
And so the need for in recreational therapy for the additional person?
That's as we move from a medical model to more and more of a social model. You know, well, as you saw in the tour, so that we can have more things going on. That's to add the life to the years, and it's even we want to extend the program because we have some evening people, some morning people, but with these really 8 different neighborhoods, 4 different mountains, it's not at all close to being overstaffed.
Is Susan LeClaire is the boss?
She is.
And how many people work for her directly? Does she have one in each wing?
No.
Home, neighborhood, or whatever we call them?
I don't know. We're asking for her to have 8.6 FTEs, so 9 full-time staff.
And I think that includes her too.
But that includes her too, correct?
And it is a 7-day-a-week operation too.
Right,
So it's not just
so not
evenings.
everybody.
It's the evenings and the weekends that drive up staffing costs quite a bit, and that's.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Representative Nelson.
Question. When the commissioners made up the proposed budget, did that include the potential salary increases?
Yes.
I
Yes.
have to ask.
Yes, it does.
I wasn't part of it.
All right, so did anyone else have any other questions regarding that section? The recreational therapy?
So is it
Looks
still
like it's-
down, is it still down 3,000 last year?
Yeah. So that has decreased, but due to a lion's share being from the medical insurance changes. They were offset, the additional employee was offset by the reduction of the medical insurance. Social services looks like it's gone up a little bit, but relatively the same. A little creep on the insurance and a little creep on the salary. I don't see anything else that looks like.
Up on unemployment tax on all of these are up. This one's almost double.
Yep.
No, it's up, but not much.
It's up.
They get back.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not double.
I think it's the workman's compensation that you were
No.
stating before.
Well, unemployment is also up, but not as much.
Okay, so when we get to Special Services Department, we see a pretty good jump in the speech therapy, Part B, but that, I believe, also we'll see on the revenue side that those
Correct.
also are jumping way up,
Yes.
even higher. We have,
Yeah, it's the same for everything on this page, is pretty much on, has something on the revenue side to match it. So.
yeah, there we go. Speech therapy went up from 79,000 to 185. So that went up 100,000. And Part B went up from 170 to 460, about 300,000. So we're looking at about $340,000 increase in revenue to offset the, what appears to be about $100,000 in increased expense.
Right.
Yes, Commissioner.
Can we go back to the very first one? Criminal, do we actually have or request 120? It looks like I have $120, but it also looks like it's $25 each.
It's $25 each per
And
criminal.
how many do we have done a year?
I mean, that all depends on how many people we hire, or how many people apply. We have to do their criminal records, so.
Then
depending
why
on
did
the-
we almost double it if we don't have any idea what we're doing?
Well, based on the year-to-date we're showing right now is 2,175. So as long as nothing else gets posted, that's
2,000 what, Paula?
175
Okay. To date,
to date.
okay.
That'll also be, as we start adding volunteers, we're gonna be required to do, the state charges us less for volunteers, but they do charge us. So we hope to be adding volunteers this year as well.
And they all have to have a criminal check.
They do.
And we're responsible for it.
Well, that's an interesting point. It's been raised in question whether or not we could require applicants to pay for their own criminal background checks. You know, apparently that is legal. It's not a common practice, but it is something that could be considered.
Do these criminal checks, when they come in, does the criminal check report come to you, or does it go to the employee?
It comes to us.
So the employee can't get a copy and take it from place to place and do it, because then he could slip in a corrected one if they from place
Exactly.
to place.
So they actually, well, at the time they applied, they actually signed a notarized statement allowing the state police to send it to us. Now, they could get a copy of it as part of their personnel record after they're here, but we wouldn't accept someone bringing it in.
That's what I meant.
We would want to.
You would not accept that?
No. Not that we're happy with the system, because the state requirement, which is from the Department of Health and Human Services, only actually specifically requires it be a state police check, which is only certifying criminal activity in New Hampshire. You know, so.
So if you're looking for a big timer, you won't know.
No, I mean,
It's a
it's,
universal check.
so if somebody has a record in Maine, we would not know. Or if somebody had just moved to New Hampshire and applied here, we wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But the state's very specific.
But the Health and Human law, rules state it has to be state police?
Specifically.
Or a minimum of state police?
Effectively, it's minimum. It requires that. There's nothing that prevents us from going above and beyond that in any way we choose to.
Have you thought about writing 4 or 5 of these places that do criminal record checks and getting with a proposal to see if we can get one at nearly the same price that would cover?
Well, to my knowledge, the state has never, the state regulation is very specific to the state police, so they wouldn't care if you did more, but they would want you to have,
Well, that's what I was asking you.
State police.
You have to do.
You have to
a
do
state
state
police.
police.
You can't say a state police or something more.
not or, and.
You
but
have to have it. Okay, that's what I was getting at.
Okay. All right, so I'm looking, kind of go down the line there. It seems to me like the respiratory therapy, for some reason, doesn't seem like is that cyclical? Is there a reason why it's kind of low and we still budgeted? It's kind of nitpicky, but I was just curious under that line there about the respiratory therapy.
Yeah, we
It's-
haven't done a whole lot, I don't know, I mean, I guess it all depends on the need.
It's interesting. In different places, some places have a lot of people with COPD, and not here. So I'm not sure whether that's a quirk of time or location, but it's not as big a therapy here as it is in some places. So whether that's good health of county residents or opportunity that we're not reaching out to, I'm not sure.
Because it certainly seems like it certainly has gone down quite a bit. So over the 3 years that I see in front of me, I mean, it's not, big money, I would imagine, but I was just curious if either one, like you mentioned, maybe we're not identifying that, or is it perhaps it's a situation that, we need to adjust the budget a little bit just to...
Well, the cynic in me would suggest that perhaps somebody can't find or hire a respiratory therapist. Sometimes it comes with having the special therapist on board in order to be able to start generating business for it too. And I would suspect that might be the case. I don't think it'd be hard to find.
Okay. All right, well, looks, and so as just an overall, we actually already reviewed the differential in the amount of expenditure reduction from the yellow sheet, right? Does that have that number there?
That has all the totals.
We had our actual expenses versus our actual revenues, right, in the budget, so as the total. And so the expenses, the budget from 2012 to 2013 is an additional $434,000. But the revenue is an increase of $697,000, bringing the differential to $262,000 in the differential from the $1,833,000 versus the $1,571,000.
Correct.
So it's
a favorable move.
Get to the bottom line here, am I correct? It's somewhere around an increase of $465,000.
in expenses. The expenses was, according to the spreadsheet here, is $434,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
in my book, so
Yep,
that's-
we're pretty close.
I'm looking at over last year's adopted budget, an increase of 11.7%. You have down
3.7%.
3.7.
From budget to
Don't I
budget.
divide
budget to budget.
465 by 11,760?
434.
Well, 12,190, well, no, 11,761, yeah, 11,761. But it looks around 3.7%. I mean, just looking at it, that looks about right.
Knowing me, I probably
Well,
wouldn't
so
get it
that's
right
good.
with a calculator. I get 11.7 again. Well, of course, I'm working with my 465,000. You're working with 434. But that still wouldn't bring it down to 7%.
Are you working with the budget or the actual?
Yeah, 400, just take 465 and divide it by 11,761.
Right, and I get 11.7, almost 11.8%. Mr. Chairman, you're the accountant, you know how to use one of these, see if you get the same figure.
Well, 11% of 11 million is 1 million. I mean, it's over $1 million. I mean, 10% of 11 million is $1 million.
Doing something wrong.
Yeah, it's not going right. So.
This is less than half of that, so it
That's right.
has to be under 5%.
It has to
So
be under 5%, what am I doing wrong?
I don't know.
Hit the wrong button.
Yeah, 434
Too many
divided by
cookies.
11,761.
Still can't get it.
Still not coming out?
You try it, maybe it's my machine.
Divide 12,196 by 11,761. Just divide the two of them, and that, that'll be 1 point what?
they get 3 points.
761.
You're using these figures, I'm using 465 divided by 7.
1 point something.
7.
1 point something.
11,760,000.
You forget the one, just, it comes out one, but 1 point what?
Yeah, well, I got, so even at 465, ooh, turn it off. 465 divided by
Maybe it's 1.7.
11,721
Okay, I know what that was.
equals, yeah, 3.96. So, I don't know, maybe, and you're saying you're getting 11, huh? I don't know, you got me there. Your divided sign and your multiple sign
Oh,
looked
you
a
know
lot
what?
alike. Was that what was going
Pushed
on?
the wrong button.
Were you,
That's
was
what I
it,
said.
were you hitting
I
multiply?
was using a square root sign thinking that was. That's what it is.
Oh, see, now clearly, the square root is 11.
Yeah, we should have
The square root of that is clearly 11. I knew that too. I just didn't realize you were pushing that button. All right, so,
How about 3.7?
excellent.
That sounds good to me.
So on the revenues, that's pretty much all, we're looking at is pretty much all on page 5 from the old and 6, right?
And the revenues we're budgeting to be conservative is a little bit less than the revenues we had last year. So we haven't tried
Right.
to spice up the budget here to balance it. So it's a conservative assumption.
So your budget revenues are actually less than the actual revenues.
Correct. By about $300,000.
Just take 7% higher, right?
7% higher, but still less than last year.
Okay.
What we actually made, right?
My only, I guess my comment regarding that is that, once again, I look at the breakdown of where those revenues are coming, and they're not really transferring over to the adjusted, goals and percentages to try to, get us closer to a self-sustaining,
Well, we got $262,000 closer than we did last year, so we're trending in the right direction.
Right, no, I understand that, but as far as like, the amount of skilled, has been reduced, the amount of physical therapy Part B has been reduced on the budget, the amount of revenue that, the amount of occupational therapy Part B, I imagine that must be the rest of that line says Part blank must be B. But the speech therapy has gone way up based on the actuals. So, so I guess from maybe for my own satisfaction, the speech therapy went way over the budget.
That's good.
So
People are
maybe I should
much
feel
better.
some confidence that that we'll see in the actual next year that some of those numbers will overshoot some of those to get that
is our goal.
that census mix to be.
But we didn't want to overstate projected revenues. So
All right.
I have a
Well,
question.
sure.
Paula, did you come to the commission's meeting on Wednesday? I noticed in here, and I forgot to ask Rob, why it appeared to be no purchases for the farm, for the nursing home? Was it because it was sold to the employees and not to the nursing home?
Well, there may have been purchases but they all come through journal entries. So we'd have to check with Kathy Armstrong to just see if maybe there's some journal entries that need to be done.
But I did read it right, as it stands here, it says.
Yes, it says nothing. but
Budgeted
there's-
3,000 and we got nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. My recollection was that, oh my gosh. I feel horrible now. I'm blocking the young man's name who operates the farm.
Willie.
It's Will's job to send the bill into Kathy, and then she posts it. So
Right.
apparently, the nursing home, this facility doesn't have really control over the bill. So that would be the person to ask. Have you sent over? Have you sent anything over so it can be, accredited to the farm, those sales?
In fact, we're going to work over this year to figure out if there isn't a better way to get allocated costs so that we can have a better, for the commissioners, a better monthly. I'd like to see a monthly financial report that would keep us current. So the annual report will be an easy thing to do.
All right. Well, I think in general, we do have a little bit more of expenses to get booked, but we're anticipating that to be, $5,000 or $10,000. So, the fact that, we're looking at a final number around the $565,000 deficit is definitely a step in the right direction. I certainly appreciate that. Hopefully we can make some more steps in the right direction, but, overall, I think that,
Compared to other county homes, it's exceptional. I'm not saying that we should ever let other people determine what our target should be, but it's good to know that in a greater range, we're not talking about millions, in some cases, $1 million or $2 million or $3 million just to be raised, to raise as a subsidy.
I certainly agree that we seem to be making a move in the right direction with the new facility, and I'm optimistic that can keep moving in the right direction if we implement some of these things, especially, as you mentioned, making sure that we're more financially on top of monthly the report. So we're really looking at that is also a step in the right direction. And I just want to remind everybody, we're meeting basically after we meet on Monday for the delegation meeting. Just wanted to use this time to quickly review the things that we were looking for on Monday was, hopefully a finalized up-to-date figure on a spreadsheet like this with both the revenues and the expenses. Have that on Monday to look at. Also, hopefully to make a call or look in the Conway Sun to see what the competitive wage rates are for the other assisted care facilities are.
Did you say the Conway Sun?
Conway Daily Sun? Isn't that a newspaper?
I thought you were looking to see what the competitive rates were.
Well, I have a funny feeling that some of that competition will be available in an advertisement if they're looking for people.
Oh, good idea.
All you have to do is look
Good
in the
idea.
paper to find out what they're advertising. So if we can't call them, we can just look in the paper. We can, just go online and click HR and see our, I would imagine they're advertising, and we could find out their wages and benefits just through those avenues to see what our competition does. That's kind of how I do it in my business. I look in the paper to see what other people are offering. So that would be an avenue to help us with, with that. So let's see. Help me out. Was there anything else that we were looking at? We're going to talk a little. Oh, you're going to try to get us a copy of the original mission statement.
I'll give you the original and the proposed.
Yeah, the original and the proposed, because we have a mission. We want to make sure that we're kind of following line, and the commissioners are in concert with the delegation on, trying to move toward this idea of the census and still fulfilling the mission as presented, which I believe it does. I mean, it says right in the mission, well, the one you showed us said,
That's normally monitored by selectmen, but how long do you anticipate this will go?
I think it's going to be quick.
Okay.
I'm hoping it could definitely be less than an hour.
Because what time will you be meeting here on Monday?
9 o'clock.
12:30 is
12:30
the
here.
posted time for here.
Yeah, that's
But I mean, if it runs a little over,
Yeah,
then we're coming right over.
yeah.
But it probably, I'm hoping, I'm anticipating that it won't. On Monday, you may be requested to come to the meeting because I believe we're getting, like an overview of where we're at, give a basic report then, but it's not the hearing, it's not part of that. We're not, it's my understanding, we're not anticipating a long, protracted, in detail for every single department at that time.
I'm looking at recycling the Coke bottles and the aluminum cans, but there's no way I can do that by Monday.
Understood. And that's something that is certainly not a budget issue. I mean, I think it might, if anything, it'll be a break-even thing. The guy will be willing to pick it up for the money he generates, or he might be able to. I should have asked Rob about his fryer layer oil, what he's doing with that, because I know personally that a guy comes and takes it away from me for nothing, so he can make.
And I bet he runs a diesel truck too.
Yeah, right. He refilters it. Yes,
Can I request
Representative
one more
Nelson.
thing? Just a very simple sheet that shows the 2012 budget versus the 2013 proposed budget. None of the other information, just like...
This sheet
I was gonna say that's
that's what I asked her for, is that
Okay.
that's what this sheet will do. I asked her for that.
Okay,
It will show what they actually spent and the new,
without the details.
well, it will be detailed. What were you looking,
Well, no, I'm just trying to think of simpler to say that the dietary is spending, asking for 40,000 more versus somebody that's asking total 30,000 less or whatever. But they can do that off the bottom of those sheets. It's the same thing.
okay, yeah, I think
It's a
like-
summary of each department. In the end, what they proposed last year or what
what the increase or decrease was for each department.
that's correct.
That's okay.
budgeted,
All right,
budget to budget,
Budget
yes.
to budget.
Budget
and
to
then whether
budget.
that's
not actual to budget.
budget to budget.
Okay.
Budget 212 to budget 213, just on this thing, if you could make a notation.
Well, I can just run, I have that all, I don't know if they can do, because that comes from next door, but I have Excel spreadsheets that I can just take out the other columns and just leave those two in.
Great.
Thank you.
Fantastic, and just show a differential.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, would you consider putting $1,000 or $1,500 in the budget in case I can work a deal with somebody that in the town of Ossipee, we bail our plastic, we get, I think it's almost $1,000 a bale now for plastic bottles. We get 56 cents a pound for the aluminum. But somebody's got to haul it, and somebody might say, I want a minimal expense. Do we want the money back from it, or do we want to sell it to them, or how do we want to work it? We may need a little bit of cash in there to do the juggling.
Well, I mean, if you can round up one of the selectmen from
$500.
Ossipee,
We may have to build, we may have to build metal cages.
Oh, I see, in order
to put the aluminum cans
and
in
until
so we can haul them away.
it's enough that's reasonable for them to come get it.
Yeah,
At no cost, is what you're saying.
well, whatever deal we can work. I'd like to get the money for them. We might have to pay them to bail them, but if Mr. Merrow Representative Merrow has really got a big heart, he could probably work a deal where we
Listen,
could get
if
the
you're gonna pay us,
aluminum
we're gonna
and
make some money, we'll probably do it.
Yeah, that's, there we go, okay. So,
but I probably need $1,000 of seed money at the moment.
okay, well,
We get Willie to make them.
yeah,
We're
okay.
gonna pay for them to make money. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what he said.
It doesn't make sense.
Does to me.
How do you figure you're gonna pay for it?
You said you want $1,000 or $1,500.
Do you think some kind of a cage on a trailer?
No, I'm
is
saying,
gonna come
if
out
they're
of the
gonna
sky?
make money.
No, I think what he's saying is just pay for the baling, and then they sell the cans.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the other two
Oh,
selectmen,
okay.
I don't know if the other two
We
selectmen
gotta
would
have
go
some
along
money
with that
if
or
we're gonna
not.
make a cage to hold it.
Depends how much
You know, an aluminum
They
can.
both go.
We need to look
Yeah,
into it,
yeah,
Dave, because I don't know how
plastic
much it would involve or anything else.
Okay,
And I don't know if the
Yeah.
other two are do it, but if we, town can make some money and it's not overburdensome on the people there, I don't have any
I
problem.
thought they were getting the profits from this.
No, they're gonna split it.
We can do that.
Work a deal. They're gonna try to work a deal
It's a
with
shame
the
to
town of
give it
Boston.
to waste management, and them to come get it.
And it's good for the environment.
It is, and it reduces our trash.
You know, right,
we go-
right. It's good for the environment, and we're making a little money out of it, they're making a little money out of it, why not?
Before Chris and Bob go on an entirely different subject, there's a bill, and I think it's before municipal, to require, when you ambulate the lines, on the town lines, there's a bill in to have that done by GPS. Now, that is good in Manchester and Nashville, but it doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to try to carry an accurate GPS all the way up through the Osprey Mountains doing this thing. And you can't use a handheld one because they're 15 or 20 feet off when you're doing it. So take a look at that before it gets too far out of hand.
All right, well, I don't know how much time I'll be in municipal and county government in that committee, because I sit right next to you in resources, recreation, and development, but I will take a look at it. I hear what you're saying. All right, well, I thank everybody for coming. We'll see you either at 12:30 in anticipation that we got some time for lunch. Maybe we'll go to the cafe and enhance the revenue.
We'll
From
get
that.
Mr. McConkey to bring in sandwiches from the restaurants that he's worried about the cafe will put out of business.
Yeah. Or we'll meet directly after the meeting. Thanks again, everybody. Great job. Oh, that's cool. Yes, sir.